This is Delhi. Please stand by for our next program. This is All India Radio. In National Program of Talks tonight, we bring you a panel discussion entitled Information Overload, the Ever-Lurking Malady. The panelists are Professor Ramesh Menon, journalist, academician and filmmaker, Mimansa Singh Tanwar, psychologist, Dr. Rintu Nath, senior scientist, Vigyan Prasar, and Anindya Chakravarty, media person who is initiating and moderating the discussion.
Welcome. In tonight's national program of talks, we're going to talk about information technology, the ever-lurking malady. I'm reminded of a particular quote that I read somewhere, which said, getting information off the internet today is like taking a drink from a fire hydrant. There's so much of information out there. You search and you're bombarded with information. Well, with me in the studio today is Ramesh Menon, academician and filmmaker, Rintu Nath, who's a scientist, and of course, Mimansa Singh Tanwar, a clinical psychologist. So my opening question to you all is information a malady today? Let me open with you, Mr. Menon.
Well, there is actually too much of information floating around. But the fact of the matter is that our lives have improved drastically because of the information which is available. We can do everything on the internet today. We can understand complex ideas. We can get new ideas. We can get a new perspective. The fact is, yes, there is too much of information for the human mind to digest. And our brains are quite stressed thinking of the overload that we are getting. I think over a period of time, we all have to train ourselves on how much to take and what to pick up, because the internet also has a lot of garbage. The information overload also has a lot of mediocre stuff. So, media literacy is so important. And once that is in place, I think we'll all be able to take what we require.
Ventunaji, what do you think? He's talking about a lot of garbage and a lot of average information which doesn't help our cause. Now, the question is, how do I, as a layman, sift through this information and know what is relevant, what is not relevant? I open a search engine, I search for something, and there is a whole lot out there. Which information is relevant for me? Which is the most authentic? How do I tackle this?
We are a knowledge-based society. So whenever is a knowledge, information is of paramount importance. And this information which we are talking about is more information. It came from the technological development. Because of the technology, we have so many information from computer-generated information, also from electronic devices, also from 24/7 news channels. We have the information available. Now, whether all these informations are required or not, that depends on the user. If we talk about the forms of media, the print media, digital media, electronic media, and social media, we need to see where informations are redundant. For example, print media as a mass media is not redundant yet. It's almost the same, if not reducing rather. But if we talk about the digital media, there are information available. Now, whether it's redundant or not, that's user dependent. If we talk about the electronic media, it is actually redundant. Most of the times, we are getting redundant information and where there is no digital divide. If it is a digital information search, the people who have the access to internet and who are a bit of maybe well educated, they will be able to handle it properly. But if you talk about that electronic media, you cannot get rid of having more information, wrong information and correct information. So it entirely based on which form of media you're talking about, whether the information is more or adequate.
Very true. Mimansa, your opening thoughts on this?
I think I will pick up from what you said. You have a hydrant from which you're drinking water. You put a faucet, you put a tap on it, and then control how much you want to inflow and how much you want to drink from it. And then, of course, you also use some filters to see what information is relevant or not. Now, the faucet is one, of course, whoever is controlling the information, whether it is print or social media, how much do we want to have the inflow of that information? So there has to be a faucet over there, which means there has to be some guidelines. There have to be some, policies in place in terms of what information should be there, whether it is sourced or not. Because the relevance of the information also depends upon what is the source of the information. Because we have so many mediums of information. If you actually look at some of the recent surveys, people still go to print media for some of the most resourceful information that is possible. But when we're using on digital platform, because there is so much that is bombarded and we have easy access to that. It's available 24 hours. It is persistent and the fact that we have it on our hands at all times. So how do we filter? How do we create that winnow in our own minds? That is the issue that we need to understand. And that happens at the level of the individual, where we know some basic things. One, what is the source of the information? Second, who is producing that message? Third, what is the target audience? Who is paying for that message? And how it is being used to influence you. Are your emotions being used? Who are the people who are talking about this information? Does it influence your belief system? Does it also influence your values, your lifestyle? Because we all tend to have a confirmation bias. We all have some preconceived notions of a lot of information that we continue to keep carrying in our minds before we also reach an information that is available now. We have some information which is also available in our own
The
minds.
historical data which is stored. Yes.
And which comes through our own day-to-day conversations. So how do we learn to filter that? We will continue to look at information which confirms to our own biases as well. So even as an individual, it's very important that we become aware when it comes to media. And which is where, like Professor Menon said, that media literacy is very important, and we need to start early. We need to start at an early age.
My next question, we've all got an idea that, okay, there is a surfeit of information available across, especially in the digital world, and we don't know what to do with it. For instance, you go into a search engine and you're seeking information. This time, you want information on, say, a medical condition. You put it into your search engine, you get 15 equally good-looking, authentic-looking sites open up in front of you. Do you have the time to go into all of them? How do you know whether the first site that you're opening is authentic or not? Would it be correct to say, because there is so much of information, there is also a chance of a lot of misinformation floating around? Your opinions on that?
Whenever we are talking about searching, especially search engines in computer internet, this is most of the search engines, they are using artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithm. So they learn. Now, from your search pattern, from the keywords you are writing, those are very important. So it will actually see the relevance, and then they do the indexing. So it's not always that you end up getting sites, websites which are not relevant. With all likelihood, the top 10 would be the most relevant for you. It is that the research is going on that to see the relevancy of data, your past preferences, how you did search, what are the information you look for, and once you go to those sites, after that, what are the links you do. When it's artificial intelligence is used, the machine learning algorithm is used, they actually use all this data not for an individual center, not understand this way as going into somebody's individual platform. Rather, this machine takes those data as a machine data. It takes care of all the URLs you visit and checks what are the indexing pattern, the metadata. They search it and they see the relevancy. And then once you're searching, actually next time when you search, you get a better result. And it's happening. So it's not that all the time, all the websites you are, of course, if it is giving you 200 sites, that doesn't mean all the 200 sites, but look for the top sites, because this will be more relevant to you.
Okay, so that is information for our listeners. So when you're searching for something, look for the top sites. Usually they are the most authentic. The chances are that the information that you're searching for, the correct answer to your question, will probably come in your top search findings. Is that what you're saying?
Right, it's happening, and it's in a big way. It's not only the top sites, they also look for the sites, informations, and how many actually hits are happening on those sites. So chances of getting sites which are not right, the chances of sites which will try to get your hack to your system to top 10, extremely rare. I'm telling you, extremely rare. If you search something, getting a top sites out of those top 10 sites, it is extremely rare chance that you will get a site which will try to hack you. It will never happen, because all the sites, they actually do cross-check. Depending on the user preference, how many times those hits happens, it keeps a track and index it continuously. So all the search engines are actually improving every day because of this machine learning process.
Let's come to, the younger lot of people, the children and the young adults. The information which is available, the digital world has opened up everything. Wanted, unwanted information. How do we cope with this? See, till a point in time where, early days of the internet, you had a parental control system, you could put that parental control. Now, it's all handheld devices. Most of our surfing on the net is through the phone. And whether it's a lifestyle indication or a lifestyle change, but everybody from a 12-year-old to a 70-year-old has a mobile phone. especially with the younger lot, how do we control this information? How do we monitor the information that they're accessing?
More than monitoring, I don't think we can monitor. It is impossible to do that. But what we can do is right from the beginning, right from the lower classes, like first standard, second standard, we need to start talking to them about how they access information, what they should access, what they should not. We need to build a personal philosophy of life, which we don't do at all. Look at parenting today. It's under such a severe crisis. So it is parenting and good education which is the only answer. There is no way we can monitor them. We'll have to convince our children that this is good for you and this is bad for you. This is what you should do and what you should not do. But we can do that only if we start at a very, very early age. Media literacy has to start from the primary school, not teach media literacy when they are studying for journalism.
So let me move on to somewhere different now. Let's look at our work life and how information has changed it. Once upon a time, we used to get physical letters. The Bombay office writes to the Delhi office and somebody opens it. Then, of course, fax came and telegrams came and then the phones came. And now, with the mail all put together, somebody who is working for an 8-hour day is on an average spending 2 to 3 hours on just exchanging information. And a study by some of the world's best corporations have said that about 24 minutes of actual work time is lost every time a man opens a mail and goes through it. This is a well-documented study. Can we do something to change the way we are functioning at work? What can we do? Of course, a video call, a video conference, which again, post-COVID, the world has again learned to adapt in such a way that has never happened before. But how do we control this information, which is quote-unquote essential because it is official information which is coming to us? And yet, accessing that information, replying to that information itself is consuming a lot of time and sometimes not productive time.
Here again, I think each one of us has to use our intelligence on what we should read and what we should not. I would do every morning is the first thing is delete mail. Find out all the useless mail that has come in and just delete it so that you only have the essentials to read and read what is important and reply to it immediately rather than keep it for later. So if we have good time management skills, I think we'll be able to work around it. Otherwise, there is no way. It can be very irritating and confusing. It can make us, make the wrong decisions.
I would like to add one more point with this. As you said about email, the best practice is if you have the official email ID. Official email IDs are things with which you communicate. For me, I do actually open only official email ID in the morning time because I need to see what are the assignments and what are the tasks are coming. And when it's the personalized emails, which is the pre-emails from different sites, I do open it during my lunchtime. That's the time management I said.
Can I add to this? See, we are talking about one segregation of information based on how much we need to, again, consume and how do we organize it. The second element when it comes to work-life balance is digital detox. Even when we eat so much, when you overeat, you are obviously going to feel and fall sick. It's the same way with the information in today's time. And the use of digital platforms. If we are going to keep on consuming, it is going to impact us in so many ways. It also impacts our mental health. It impacts our sleep. It impacts the fact that, our day-to-day conversations, the fact that even we are right now having, eye-to-eye contact and conversation. You move out, you go in a restaurant, it will be a completely different ballgame altogether. Conversations are happening more through, your phones than anything else. And this is how it has changed us. That subtle subliminal change that it has had on each one of us. And that's what we need to recognize, that how do we bring in the element of digital detox in our lives? As a family rule, as a family regulation, are we together able to say, okay, 1 hour of the day, none of us are going to touch our phones or anything to do with the digital gadgets. No TV, nothing. Let's sit and have conversations. As a part of the work life, even in organizations, are you able to do that? This is our switch off hour. We're going to all switch off for some time and maybe do some wellness activity. Organizations are talking about wellness as a part of mental health and mental well-being at large. Even in schools, for that matter, that is being taught. So I think digital detox is very important, and it also needs to happen as a part of media literacy and as a part of mental well-being, even with children in schools. So like what Professor Menon was saying, that, we need to start early. Absolutely. I think as parents and as educators, we need to use teaching moments for our children where we are able, when they are viewing a lot of this information, we are able to ask them the right question for them to learn to how to filter and process the information which is coming in. So I have an 8-year-old. As young as 6 years, I started. So when she would watch a cartoon, I would ask her something as simple as, you're watching this cartoon, and sometimes you also go to the market and you see the same cartoon as a soft toy is put on the aisle right in front. Why do you think that's over there? Why don't you think and give me an answer about that? And different things. You give them mobiles, you give them gadgets. You're playing this application. It's great. You're learning a lot of things. But sometimes it also has certain advertisements that pop up. Do you think it's age appropriate? Do you think, would you want to come to, either me or your father to perhaps ask if you can download this? How much information? It asks your email. It asks your name. Do you think you should be sharing your personal information over there? So all these things we need to start early. When a child is born and when you give the child a bicycle, you give them a training to ride that bicycle. You just don't give them the bicycle and say, okay, you do it on your own. We're talking about gadgets and digital platform, which children have as young as 6 years, 7 years. How do we not give them the knowledge, the skills, the tools to be able to use them in an effective way? Because it's a tool after all. You use it positively, you use it negatively, it's in our hands. So we are the compass. We have to give them that direction as educators, as parents, on how to use this.
That brings me to another question, and which I will not fight shy of. Today, this digital medium, there are people who are operating and bombarding you with data and information and stories they want you to consume so that you form a particular political opinion. You are being maneuvered, and that information is absolutely mind-boggling. It is not information that you're seeking. It is information that is perforce landing on your phone through a public social media platform. One-to-one, groups, and of course the public platforms. How do you cope with this? Because we all know that increasingly we have become a very bitter, angry society. Angry at each other for reasons not personal, okay? There's nothing between you and me. Because of this information which has hit you, you start believing in a certain thing. And because of the Y information that has reached you, you start believing in the Y world order. And there is this divide. How do we control this? Can we bring sanity here?
It's again education which is the answer, where people are able to critically filter information. What is right, what is wrong, what is propaganda, what is advertising. There is this famous saying which says that truth is what somewhere wants to hide. The rest is all advertising.
Come again. I would like the listeners to listen to that again.
Truth is what someone somewhere wants to hide. The rest is all advertising. It is basically education which will teach you how to filter information. And everyone throughout the day, when they are accessing all the gadgets, looking at all the information, trying to process that information, they have to use that critical reasoning power, and unless we build that critical reasoning power in our young people today, we are going to be in serious trouble tomorrow.
So critical reasoning power, you're saying, is one way to sift and understand an information, especially the ideological or manipulative kind of information which is reaching us. That is one way
Absolutely.
To control that. Your opinions on that?
See, I would like to see it as a restraint and understanding. When it's the understanding, we have great deal of control on the digital platform. Especially when you talk about that internet. If we have that knowledge, it's very simple for the younger group, for the parents, for the teachers, it's very simple to control that gadget with the understanding and knowledge. But when you talk about that electronic media, which I mean, that through television which comes, it doesn't have a control that way. There are some sort of parental control I do see, but that's not useful most of the time. So there is a restraint and also more parental, maybe direct control, which should be used.
Well, I'll tell you about a way I controlled my watching electronic media. I've stopped watching it altogether. I don't watch electronic media, mainline television anymore.
That's a restraint. the part.
It's a restraint. And because the more you watch and it gets at you, the more agitated you get. Because in the electronic media, contrary to the digital media has a lot of information to offer you, in the electronic media today, it is mostly opinions which are floating around
Right.
and not information. So it is again a kind of a manipulative opinions which are floating around and which you get influenced by. So do we all agree that we can therefore, by stopping or controlling watching our electronic media, by which I mean television, we can sift out a lot of information that we are being bombarded with?
You not only sift information, you will also force the electronic media to change the way they are giving us information. When they realize that people are not swallowing it the way they give it to us, they will also realize that they need to change. So it is actually consumers like you and me who will be able to change that. By not watching it, you are making a statement saying that this is mediocre, this is not helping me. I am spending half an hour watching a program and I'm not learning anything out of it. When that happens, the electronic media will be forced to change and come back to good content. Ultimately, content is king.
Interestingly, we are talking of India being a nation where the internet penetration is probably among the highest today. The number of internet users, the number of, smartphone users. But this shift or this sifting of information has not probably happened as it should have happened. I'm talking about even amongst the educated people, We're still watching and consuming things and spending a lot of time on things which is neither educating us nor making us, knowledge enriched, which we should be in today's generation. But it is just bombarding us with content they want to bombard us with, perhaps an ulterior motive. Why has this not happened in the urban scape that we're talking about? A lot of homes are still consuming stuff that some of us may have stopped consuming.
Yeah.
Assume that restraint is voluntary. So whether I choose to watch or select a particular channel, that's a voluntary. It cannot be imposed. Yes. Whereas I am talking about a system where a person who is knowledgeable enough in the family takes decision should have a control of the kind of information flow that house will be having. So if we see we are in the right direction, we have the smart TV now, and if you have that control with the smart TV, you know how to control it. You could actually have those every access in your hand. So this electronic media actually become digital media, and with the right kind of knowledge, you could actually block or open as per your wish. So we are in the right direction.
So for the benefit of our listeners, let us put together a list of do's and don'ts that we can for them to ensure that despite living in an information age and in a knowledge society, they don't suffer from an information overload. Mimansa, I would like to have your point of view first. And why didn't you talk specifically about the younger lot of people? I'm sure there are a lot of young people who come to you with addiction problems.
Yes.
Or with social media.
Absolutely. And I would say that, education is one thing, and how education is able to instill critical thinking is the other. So we may be educated, but are we able to really think critically about things is something that we need to start inculcating in young people. We see polarities of viewpoints more and more because of this lack of critical thinking. We are just absorbing more, reacting more, than actually wondering that, whether this information is right or not, whether it is harmful, whether it is usable. And we see a lot of negativity that is also floating on media, which is where we see trolling happening, we see cyberbullying happening for young children, for young adults. And we need to talk about, even on while you are practicing and you're using virtual world, like in real world, we talk about empathy, talk about kindness, we talk about compassion. If we are people who are also on the virtual world, interacting, connecting, we need to still follow the same thing over there. We need to still follow the aspect of how we can be kind on a platform which is called social. How can we be compassionate over there? How can we take down a lot of this negative information that continues to float by putting in a lot more positive over there? Why is it that, the negative content or the negative information sticks to us more and catches more of our attention? So we need to really talk about the positive element over there. So with young people, it's also about how it has started shaping their sense of individuality. The conformity element of social media is so much more in young generation today that the number of likes, followers, shares, comments really impacts their sense of self. And that needs to change. That's the worrisome point. And it happens even for us as adults.
The problem perhaps is, I'll move to a different direction now, but to come back to what you were saying, the problem perhaps is we are living in an age of social media celebrities. In the social media makes you a professional. You are nowhere. You don't sing in physical concerts. You put out music on the social media and you become a sensation.
Well, that's the positive aspect of media. You're able to showcase your talent, you're able to showcase your work and your professional element and reach out to a larger community of people in today's time. So in that sense, the world has become smaller for us. And
There is positive,
yes,
there
that's
is
the positive
things
element.
happening.
But at the same time, as a professional, I need to have a good sense of self-esteem, which I need to start teaching young children from an early age.
Mr. Menon, I wanted to ask you, we were talking about the manipulative information. Can we somewhere think in terms of reaching a consensus that we should not put out negative information even when it suits our purpose? Because eventually it divides society. Is there a need for developing such an ethic today?
Absolutely. We have to be very careful about what we put out for the public. We need to have that sense of responsibility. But unfortunately, I don't see that happening. Though it's a fantastic idea, because the race is always to get eyeballs. That is why you have the kind of information that you have on the internet, on electronic media. Always the race is on to make more and more money. The race is on to get wider viewership. And negative material always attracts more people than positive ones. It'll take me hours to infuse positivity into people, but to put a negative idea into their mind would take me 10 seconds. So, that is why this is spreading. That is why what is really crucial here is I think we need to really sit down, think about this and bring in media literacy, right from a very, very young age, because that's the only way that they will grow up.
Rintu, your parting comments.
It's actually difficult to come up with a kind of a one single solution which fits everybody, because the kind of information, whether that's right, wrong or skewed, it's relative. So it's ultimately is a consciousness which should prevail and aptitude, which information to take and what not. But getting a rule or kind of legislations, I think it's very difficult.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you tuned in to this program, that's all we have here today. The takeaway is, it is up to you. The media is here to stay. Digital is here to stay. The information is here to stay. The misinformation is here to stay. It is up to the individual to control it and not let that affect us. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for being with me here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You were just listening to our national program of talks. The topic of the discussion was Information Overload, the Ever-Lurking Malady. The panelists were Professor Ramesh Menon, journalist, academician and filmmaker, Mimansa Singh Tanwar, psychologist, Dr. Rintu Nath, senior scientist, Vigyan Prasar, and Anindya Chakravarty, media personality who initiated and moderated the discussion. Produced and presented by Naveen K. Gupta of All India Radio, Delhi, this program came to you from the Delhi station of All India Radio.